Okay, I just wanted to reminisce tonight. Reminiscing about the fact that we moved to Tennessee at the end of 1983 when I would have been just 7 years old. But before we moved to Tennessee, I remember us eating at a restaurant called the Dinner Star. I think that was the name. I could be wrong, but I think the restaurant was called Dinner Star, and Mom told me that we ate at the Dinner Star every Friday night. I don't remember a whole lot about eating at the Dinner Star in Illinois. It being that I was only 5 or 6 years old at the time, and a few times I was like 7 years old, so I don't remember much. But however, I remember a few things specifically about the Dinner Star. That is, of course, the Dinner Star had steps to walking up the main patio and into the building. And in front of that was the main cooking area. And the main cooking area, there was like an exhaust fan with a louver. A louver, one of them louver exhaust fans with the louver that when the exhaust fan shuts off, the louver closes, and whenever the exhaust fan turns on, the louver opens. And the exhaust fan to the main cooking area had that louver to it. And the louver was always open, it being that they always kept that exhaust fan on, and I could hear the sound to that exhaust fan going on and on as we were walking into the entrance of the Dinner Star. They kept that exhaust fan going, and of course the louvers were always open, it being that they kept that exhaust fan going. And I could hear the sound of that exhaust fan as we were walking into the restaurant. And the sound of that exhaust fan was pretty loud, as I can remember. But I remember one thing whenever we ate at the Dinner Star in Illinois, that they lots of times seated us to the main dining room of the Dinner Star. And I could see from the outside of the Dinner Star when we were walking into the restaurant that restaurant had an exhaust fan to the main dining room. And they had like a small tarp hinged onto the outside of that exhaust fan. For whenever the exhaust fan turns on, that tarp opens. And for when the exhaust fan turns off, that tarp closes. And the main dining room to the Dinner Star, of course, sometimes had their exhaust fan turn on, which which I enjoy seeing that exhaust fan spin around. And when that exhaust fan was turned off, it was turned off a few times when we walked into that restaurant. Some of the tarp didn't fully close, and I could tell from the gap of the outside tarp that it was probably an ill exhaust fan. You all know the ill exhaust fans. They have them 3 spiral-shaped blades that spin counterclockwise. And I could see through the gap in the tarp that it was like probably a 3-bladed ill exhaust fan. Because I could notice it's 3 spiral-shaped blades through that gap in the tarp. And I'm assuming that exhaust fan was for exhausting cigarette fumes from the main dining area. Keep in mind, that was back in the days when they allowed cigarette smoking inside. Of course, this was from years like back from 1981 to 1983 that I can remember. But I seriously remember that exhaust fan through the wall of the restaurant. And I seriously think that it was an ill exhaust fan. And I think they had a second exhaust fan through the wall to exhaust the cigarette smoke. And it looked at me to be at the time not an ill exhaust fan, but some other exhaust fan that had 4 blades to it. But I was only like 5 to 6 years old. And at one time I was like 7 years old. But I seriously remember the exhaust fans through the walls of the main dining area. One of them was an ill exhaust fan, probably, and the other was some 4-bladed fan that I can't ascertain what kind of brand it was, but I just know it was like a 4-bladed exhaust fan. And another thing that I remember at the Dinner Star is we ate at the Dinner Star before we moved to Tennessee back in 1983. And I remember a man, whenever we walked down to our car across the parking lot, I remember a man chopping down weeds with a weed cutter. Let me see if I can, pull that weed cutter up online. Give me just a few moments. Here's a weed cutter that the man was using at White Star across the parking lot. It had like a U-shaped metal structure at the end of the pole, as seen in this video. And it also had, let me try to focus here. I don't know if y'all can see this from the video, but it had a blade with groove-shaped with groove shapes. A blade with groove shapes along both ends to help cut them tall weeds. And I'm telling you that back whenever we lived at our Nyota farm we lived at our Nyota farm from like 2001 to 1998. And back whenever Mom and Dad were married, Dad put me to work around the barn, chopping down the tall weeds with this weed cutter right here. Yes. Here's a weed cutter. It has a long handle to it, along with that groove-shaped metal blade at the end. But that's what Dad turned me loose with around the barn at our Nyota before he left Mom, cutting them tall weeds. That was a pain in the ass. I would have much rather had a weed eater with a brush cutter at the end of it, because cutting down tall weeds with this weed cutter right here is a pain in the ass. You kind of have to chop and use lots of muscle strength to chop with to cut down the tall weeds. I would have much rather had a weed eater with a brush cutter at the end. But Dad left Mom back in 1995, and me and Mom had to move to the town. I lived with Mom for a while until I moved to my new place back in 2001. And I use a weed eater around my place, an electric weed eater, a battery-powered weed eater around my place. I live in town, and I'm just thankful I don't have to use one of these pain-in-the-ass weed cutters anymore. Just like that weed cutter that I saw that man using across the parking lot at the Dinner Star restaurant back in like 1983, before we moved to Tennessee. And the same weed cutter that my dad made me use back when we lived in our Nyota home from 1991 until Dad left us in 1995 for a younger woman. And me and Mom lived in that Nyota home for about 3 years afterwards. Then we had to move to town afterwards because we could no longer afford the payments. But Mom found Bruce, and Mom is happy with Bruce. Bruce is a good husband to Mom. I'm thankful that Mom has found Bruce. But it took it a while for Mom to find Bruce. Mom and Bruce met in like 2006. They got married in 2009. They've been together ever since. Bruce has been a great husband to Mom. I'm grateful that Mom has Bruce, because Bruce is a great husband to Mom. But before, Mom just had no luck finding another man until she met Bruce in 2006. And Bruce has been wonderful to Mom. They've been together from 2006, so on. They got married in 2009, and they're still married today. And Bruce is a great husband and a great stepfather to us. I'm grateful to have him. I hope that you all enjoy this video right here. By the way, I'm 45 years old. I just turned 45 on December the 21st. And I still remember them events of that Ilg exhaust fan and the other exhaust fan from back when I was like 5 to 7 years old. And it being that I'm 45 years old, and remember the White Star restaurant somewhat whenever I was a kid, only 5 to 7 years old, remembering that main exhaust fan to the cooking area with the louver to it that I heard as we were walking into the restaurant. And also remembering that Ilg exhaust fan to the main dining room, possibly to remember that cigarette smoke that it possibly exhausted way back in the day when they still allowed cigarette smoking allowed indoors. And that other exhaust fan, it was a 4-bladed exhaust fan that I can't remember the exact name of, but I remember the White Star restaurant and all the exhaust fans that I saw at the White Star restaurant from like 5 to 7 years old. And I'm 45 years old. I'm 45 years old as of December 21st to 2020. To remember that far back makes my memory so very incredible. I seriously remember every single fan that I ever saw in my lifetime. It being that I had a great obsession with fans back when I was younger. I still do today have an obsession with fans, but not so much as I used to. But back when I was younger, I had a great obsession with fans. And I can almost remember every single fan that I ever saw in my childhood. And even into my 20s. And into my 30s. My memory is that great. So, I just wanted to point out how great my memory is when it comes to remembering fans. I hope that you enjoy this video.